In 2014, under the PPPC administration, a Brazilian company, NF Agriculture, led by Guyanese-Brazilian businessman Yucatan Reis, entered into an agreement with the government of Guyana for the development of lands in the intermediate savannas at Ibini and Kimbia in the Berbice River. The project envisaged the development of a mixed farm model with emphasis on the development of a mega corn and soybean cultivation. 7 years later today, the NF agriculture investment is growing by leaps and bounds, and despite hiccups that delayed expansion under the previous administration, its CEO, Mr. Yucatan Reis, says he is excited at the recent movement in his company's investment trajectory.
So we basically started the project out with an idea in 2014. We did some trials, and in 2018 we did our first crop, and it came out well. This is our first commercial corn crop that will go to Royal Chicken to produce truly Guyanese poultry. The project started out when we saw the vast lands available here. The weather conditions are suitable for corn, soybean, and sorghum. One of the great richness of Guyana, its ability to produce food. Here we have rain throughout the year. The soils are adaptable to the crops, especially after you throw in some limestone. So here you find some corn. It's dried. It's been dried in the cob, and it's ready to be harvested. We should get about 4 to 5 tons per hectare on average.
As was mentioned, NF Agriculture has had many trials with corn and soybean over the years, and this is the first commercial crop with a yield of around 4 tons per hectare. Harvesting of the first commercial venture has already been completed, and according to Mr. Reis, will be ramped up to 1,000 acres in the new year. The total volume of corn harvested from this crop is just over 100 tons. With 1,000 acres of corn to be cultivated in the new year, the company is expecting a yield of 1,500 tons of grain. The NF Agriculture boss noted that government's recent signing of a contract for the construction of the road from Ibini to Takama will make things much easier in the coming year. Speaking to the company's experience with soybean cultivation, Mr. Reis explained that the trials have been exceptionally promising, but has had to be put on hold for the time being.
The soybean cultivation went really well. The challenges that we have at the moment is we need a dryer and silos for it. So while the corn can dry in the cob, the soybean needs a dryer. You have, let's say, 2 to 3 days maximum to dry it out, and that facility is still not yet available in the region. And the other situation is that for the soybean, you need to process. You need an extruder to make into soy meal and oil, and that's also not available in the country.
The construction of silos and other infrastructure at Takama is included in government's $500 million initial investment into the intermediate savannas and should be ready by this time next year. I wondered at what was required in terms of irrigation infrastructure to realize a successful crop, as has been the case here.
One of the things that's important to note here is that there is no irrigation, no artificial irrigation. We've done thorough research using hydromet's data going back 30 years, and the irrigation here, the pattern, we use the May-June rains, which hasn't failed the region. So we get about 1,800 to 2,000 mm of rain per year, and throughout the November season, November to, let's say, February, we're also able to do a short crop. So we don't need to irrigate. The soils here are higher than in the coast, so it's natural drainage that we have here. And so far we have been very happy, and especially during this season where we got a lot of rain, but we didn't have major problems.
In the meantime, Mr. Reis explained that the company has been getting promising results from the cultivation of 2 varieties of sorghum, a cousin of the corn plant, that is used as feed for cattle and poultry.
Planted two varieties. One is the giant sorghum, which is for biomass. It will be fed to the cattle. And the other one is the grain sorghum. The grain sorghum has about 80% of the protein of corn, and we planted it during the dry season. So there was basically periods of 2 weeks without rain, and the sorghum survived. And why it survived is because at night here the temperature drops and we have some humidity and some mist. So the sorghum is able to feed at night with that moisture and survive. So we believe that we can do close to 2 to 3 crops here per year. So one main crop of corn and soybean, and another one of sorghum, and another one of the giant sorghum. So the area, it's very suitable for vegetable protein production.
Across at the giant sorghum variety cultivation, Mr. Reese explained the use of the variety for the development of the cattle aspect of NF agriculture.
Okay, we're seeing here a variety of sorghum, what we call the giant sorghum. This is mainly used for silage, and what you have to keep into perspective, this was planted during the dry season, so it was very little rain, and we have here about 6-7 feet of height of the sorghum. It doesn't give any grain, but it gives biomass, and it's used for silage for the cattle. That's what we're gonna use here. So while the pasture during the dry season here gets really dry and the protein content decreases, we're gonna feed the animals with the giant sorghum. There are two ways. You can actually bring the machine that cuts it and you use a silage, or you can loose out the cattle here. We're pretty happy with what we produce here because we have very little rain. So we're gonna use the sorghum as an intermediate crop after we harvest the corn and eventually the soybean here. Next, we're gonna see the same type of crop, a sorghum, but ones that grain. So most of the nutrients goes to the grain, while this type, goes into the leaves.
I wondered at how the crop of sorghum would be monetized.
One of the things that the farm is the conversion of vegetable protein into animal protein. So the way to monetize this is you produce a lot more beef, or or in case of other animals, pork, for example, you produce a lot more meat. So the idea is that you give it to them. They should gain about 1 to 2 kg, so that's 2 to 5 pounds a day if they're fed with this. So the monetization of the crop comes into the fattening of the animals. One of the things that's important for us is to do the crop rotation. What does that mean? You have a main crop, which is the corn and soybean, and then you rotate with another crop. So we can use, in our case here, sorghum or pasture. So with the sorghum, we believe that the sorghum, with the roots going down deep, you can recover the nutrients that are going down underground and bring it back. So you increase the organic matter of the area, and for next year you have a better main crop. So our plan here is to increase the soil production, and that takes about 5 years. The soils have acidity. We have limestone, and the sorghum and the grass pastures help improve the organic matter in the soil. Hence, you'll have a better production in the coming years.
The other variety of sorghum being cultivated at Ibini is a variety that produces grains that is used in the poultry industry.
So we planted two fields of grain sorghum, which total about 30 acres. You can see here it's a different plant than what we saw before. This one can be harvested and given to the poultry industry, and it's specifically good for the layers. Um, this sorghum has about 80% of the protein of the corn, and it can be planted during the dry season, which we're now in. So we're very happy with what we're getting. There's still room for improved yields, but we plan to do also a trial of it during the December, February rains.
The NF agriculture investment in the Ibini Savannah has so far amounted to around 500 million Guyana dollars, and the company projects that in less than 4 years, the cultivation will expand to approximately 10,000 acres. Speaking to the experiences gleaned over the last 7 years of NF agriculture in Guyana's intermediate savannas, Mr. Rees said it has been enlightening.
So we started out in 2014 with an idea. So the first trial that we did here was of soybean. Um, and for you to have a perspective, the field at that time had to be flown in. So throughout this period, we've invested close to 400 million Guyana dollars in research. And this year we're going to have our first commercial crop, which will be of corn. So we plan to increase this in the coming years and to reach a total of 10,000 acres. We're hoping to do that in less than 4 years. One of the things that it's important that with agriculture, there's no perfect recipe. One recipe that's done in one place cannot be replicated to another area. So basically, throughout these years, we have perfected our research and our recipe. So what we believe is that coming in the next couple of years, we'll be able to increase the yields and increase the profitability of the crops. We're very happy with what we're getting. It's been a long route, a long road, but we believe we're going to be successful, and soon Guyana will be the breadbasket of the Caribbean.
The surrounding communities at Ibini and along the Berbice River, through which supplies for the NF farm is transported, have also benefited from the relationships that have been forged by association.
Throughout these years here, we have developed a good relationship with the community, and we believe in the local knowledge. So we liaise a lot with the local farmers, with the local community. So our transportation is done by the Brothers Boat Service, Ryan and his people. We also work very closely with NARI. Smokey has been somebody that has been very helpful with us here. We liaise with the GLDA as well. We have a very good relationship with the community, and we believe that in the future they can also replicate in the areas along the Berbice River the same what we're doing here. The knowledge that we have gathered here doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the community, and we're able to share this. Whomever wants to take a look, to do the same thing. With the farmers that are neighboring the farm, we work with them also by sharing some of our technical expertise. We lend and we give limestone, fertilizer to the community, and we believe that this project here can be done anywhere in the intermediate savannas. People can also replicate, and the more people that do, the more Guyana will benefit, and they will have income. One of the things that's also we've been gathering, it's interest from other countries such as Trinidad. A lot of people have been interested in buying the corn, the soybean, but what we've told them is that first we have to suffice the Guyana market, and then we'll be able to export.
Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa says he is heartened at the results being reported from Guyana's intermediate savannas.
With the advent of that, the corn and soya being cultivated in the intermediate savanna, we have seen and renewed interest in this non-traditional area, where we are seeing international investors are coming on board. Over the last 5 years, we have seen an investor from Brazil, NF International, that tried to start cultivation there, but he had serious setback with the previous administration. As a result of that, last year when we took over government, we work along with him, and he has cultivated 2 crops now. Last year and this year, he have cultivated 2 crops, and his trial are bearing fruits too. And I think that there are good opportunities for him to expand his crop. And whilst NF is cultivating corn at Ibini, he plans to expand cultivation this year. I believe about to 1,000 acres, and that will complement our system that we have in Guyana. We are seeing more investors coming on board. As a matter of fact, I have been invited by the minister responsible, or the secretary for agriculture of the state of Roraima, to visit there, because there are a number of prospective investors that wants to come to Guyana to invest in corn and soya. So the corn and soya industry is taking shape now, and we are moving rapidly to develop this as an industry where Guyana Forestry can satisfy local consumption and at the same time secure markets in the Caribbean to reduce the food bill in the next 4 years.